I don't know how to describe it other than like a demon type of sound.
But it's silhouetted, hulking, every bit of 5.5 feet wide, 13 to 14 foot tall, pitch black.
The one thing that ran through my mind when I had this encounter was I don't have a big enough gun.
Your host, two-time witness and field researcher for more than 40 years, William Jevning. Welcome to Creek Devil.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Campfire Talk. This is where we sit around a fire, put our feet up with a cold drink, and let the conversation flow. It's just Forrest, David, and myself today. Forrest wasn't home a few minutes ago, so me and David started recording, and we're going to use that for outtakes at some point.
Yeah, that all got shot to hell.
Well, my Challenger got sideswiped out here. The whole driver's side is screwed up. Somebody actually with big oversized tires decided they were going to drive up on the car and not leave any kind of information. So I had to take a call from my insurance company so they get that fixed.
That lasted longer than our conversation had to start.
It did, didn't it? I know. What'd we talk, like 10 minutes, something like that?
Yep.
Well, we drove over to Marble Falls, and I said something about putting my, to Anita about putting my phone on the charger, and I reached in my purse, and I didn't have my phone. I was like,
oh, no.
Uh-oh, moment.
I was telling David, I said, we were over at Walmart just before I got back to do the recording, and we're talking to a lady in the deli section about why they didn't have German chocolate cake. And she was telling us, all this stuff about how they'll get stuff and then they'll decide they don't want to have it. And then a few months later, they bring it back. And as I walked away, she's like, well, have a good weekend. And we looked at each other like, weekend? What is that? Because I was telling David, I said, I've been retired. I'll be retired a year on Friday. And time has gone by really quick, of course. But one of the things you learn really fast is you lose track of your days because you're not in the schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we were talking about Milo, because David asked me if I'd heard from Milo, and I said, well, hearing from Milo is kind of hit and miss, because he's in the same boat. He's been retired since, let me think, 2007, I think. So he's been retired a while, and I was telling too about, I'll send Milo all kinds of texts, I don't get no answer. I'll send him some crazy meme and I'll get an LOL back. So I know he's reading the text. He just doesn't respond.
At least he's still alive.
At least he's still alive, right?
Yeah.
And then my friend John Adams, he was the last of my group of friends to retire last February. I think John retired. So I texted him a couple weeks afterwards, and I said, are you losing track of your days yet? He says, well, I'm starting to. I said, give it time. You'll forget all about what day of the week it is.
Yeah, I told Will Saturday I kept walking around thinking all day it was Sunday, and I couldn't get it out of my head that it was Sunday. It was Saturday, not Sunday.
Oh, well, I do the same thing. It's like, how when you're working, you look forward to your weekend, your days off. Now it's the opposite. It's like, damn weekend, I can't get my business done. I was telling David I just bought a Jeep, and I wanted to transfer some money from one bank to another one, and I got ticked off because it was like Saturday. I'm like, crap, it's Saturday. It takes 3 business days to transfer, right, between different institutions. I'm like, son of a gun, now I ain't going to get there until the middle of next week. Damn weekends. Yep. So we were kind of talking.
You didn't buy one of those hybrids, did you?
No. It's a 2013 Wrangler.
Oh, okay. Because I was actually looking at one of those high tides over there, and the lady was going on about, and it's a hybrid, and it's automatic. And I looked at her. I said, you don't have any manual transmission ones?
Right.
And she says, you want a manual? You're a woman. I'm like, I want a manual.
What's wrong with that?
Transmission. Yeah,
right.
Well, and I don't want any one of these damn hybrids either. So I said, I want a regular engine, and I said, I want a manual. Well, we'd have to order that for you. I was like, yeah, go figure.
Well, they were going to give me up to $4,000 off if I would have gotten one of those. I thought, I don't want one of those. I want
a hybrid. I don't want something you plug in. Just give me something normal.
I wanted a regular Jeep. This is my third one I've owned now, so I wanted just a regular Jeep Wrangler.
Well, I really liked it and the looks of it, the vehicle, but they ended up having to send it over to Austin because nobody around here would buy one.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Now,
wow.
This is ranching country. They don't want all that hybrid crap.
Well, no, I mean, like you're saying, if it's electric, you get stuck out in the middle of nowhere. You're kind of toast.
Right?
You know?
Yeah. I really don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere and have Bigfoot stomping around me, looking at me through the window.
It's like, I was telling David, we're going up in October up to the Navajo reservation. They've invited us up there, and our friend Don, he's a member of the tribe. So, and I told him, I said, TW said he's going to go with us. So we figure we'll meet Adam and then we'll caravan up there. But Don's been telling me, about what it's like up there and what we need. He says, you need a vehicle. We need to bring at least a couple of Jeep cans along full of gas. And, we're going to be 40 miles away from the nearest place to get gas.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't be set up to where you're going to be out there and be out of luck for resources.
Right.
Got to take them with you.
What's the first spot we're going to, cuz?
Every once in a while, Don will give me a different place up there we're going to and what we need to do first. There's so many to choose from. I don't know exactly. What's that?
Is it in the Four Corners region, or are you farther?
Well, Four Corners is part of it, but it's the entire reservation up there. So there's different parts of it. There's activity all over literally all over it. He sent me a map of all the different things going on. So I'm trying to pick and choose which ones I think we need to prioritize. So that's what's coming up in October. He says that's the best time of year to come up there, and we'll probably go up for a couple of weeks.
What was that area where he sent the picture with all the tracks by the river?
Oh, geez, I'd have to look. I don't remember offhand. There's so much of it. I just kind of putting it off the side, collecting it, and then I'll make our game plan here probably. Well, I'm going up to Washington to visit family and stuff the end of August for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll come back and we'll get all that finalized. I got to let Adam know too, and so he'll know when to take some time off.
Well, I'm jealous.
Well, you can go if you like.
Yeah.
Well, if I had the means to get there, I sure would. My F-350's a 4x4, so and I could fill the tank up on it, and I'd be the only one still driving around because I got a 150-gallon fuel tank in the bed.
No, I can strap some Jeep cans on the back of my Jeep.
Yeah, I know, but you missed what I said. I got a 150-gallon fuel tank in the bed of my truck, and it is automatically, it's popped into my system. So all I do is flip a switch, and there we go. I can travel about 1,500 miles on it without ever having to refuel. So
it's okay. Yeah. I know how to siphon. Hey, I ever tell you guys about that? My dad used to get so mad at me when I was a teenager. They taught me how to do that so I could get gas for the lawnmower and stuff. All the little chores I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't count on other projects like I had a tote goat and stuff like that. I'd siphon gas out for that. And then my dad, he I don't know what he got mad for. He worked for the county, so he got his gas for free. He'd just fill up when he'd go to the shop, right? But I'd be siphoning gas out of his work truck, for the tractor and for whatever else I was using. He'd go, "Where's my damn gas at? I just filled this up." I don't know. Couldn't tell you. There's two sides to everything. You want me doing chores? Okay. I'm doing projects too.
Well, Four Corners is where I did all my field school. I absolutely love Moab, Utah, and that area in there.
Yeah, that's a real active area. There's so much going on up there. So it's locals want us to come up there and work that area and help them out. So that's what we're going to do.
Green River is beautiful down through there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be. I know Adam's going to make at least one film of what we do up there, maybe two. We're kind of getting ahead of ourselves on projects, but Dave and I were talking about, we're talking about back, when we were teenagers and the Bigfoot stuff we were doing back then, and I couldn't quite figure out the timeline on some of those things. Like I knew exactly when, after I met Green and Hendon, that was last week of July, first week of August, that time frame. And I can't remember. I don't think we'd started school yet when I called John and his brother Jeff came over in that little incident where, we did the poltergeist routine where Jeff got locked out of the car and John and I were scared to death trying to get it going and it took off without Jeff. That to this day he's still traumatized about. I know that was before we started school, but then after school, we talked about, and David, doggone it, we were talking earlier and I was thinking, well, shoot, that trip must not have been till the spring, but I don't know because.
You had talked about the Clark Ranch being somewhere around Christmas or right before spring.
It would have, it had to have been. I don't think, we talked about all that stuff, but I don't think we went out there until after Christmas because it was kind of late winter, early spring. When the tree frogs first start coming out.
Yeah.
Because they'll be holed up for winter in that area. So it was around that time. I don't know. It's been too many years since all that happened, but because I was trying to think in order, and there were too many things we did that, I can't possibly remember when they were in order. And then I talked to, John and Milo and whoever else was involved there, and their recollections are different. So no two of us are on the same time frame there.
We started talking about Mount St. Helens after y'all had enlisted, I think it was.
Well, I remember exactly when that happened because, we, in the beginning of our senior year in September 76, Milo and I enlisted on delayed entry in the Army. And then Scott, he enlisted November 10th. I remember that exact date because he mentions it periodically when we talk. And that's the day we left to go to Mount St. Helens, was November 10th of 1976.
Where did y'all go when y'all got there? I can't remember. I remember y'all had to hike in.
Well, the plan was to go into where the cabin that the miners got attacked in 1924, the location where that had been because it burned down in the 60s. Yeah. But I talked to that college student. He told me how to get to the location because they'd been there a couple of weeks prior. So we drove down there in Scott's dad's brand new VW van. That's important. Remember that it was brand spanking new. Because we lost the cast cap to it somewhere along the way. And then on our way out, we had wrist rockets. Slingshots. Mm-hmm. And me and Milo took some solid 1-inch steel rod, the round rod, and we cut them into half-inch chunks. And that's what we shot out of the wrist rockets. Mm-hmm. I went to use the porta potty they had. It wasn't a porta potty. It was a little wooden bathroom, but I went to use that and I come out and I heard all this moaning and complaining and stuff. I'm like, what'd you guys do? I was gone for like 30 seconds and you two bozos are out here destroying things. Well, Scott shot one of these things straight up in the air. And where did it land? Right in the center of the windshield.
Oh God.
And it made these beautiful rings like a bullseye. So it was kind of a quiet drive back home. Yeah. It was about a 2-hour drive. And Scott dropped everybody off first. I was the last one because we live fairly close to each other. So I was the last one. And he gets ready to leave my place. And he's like, I'm really toast this time, aren't I? I said, no, your dad's a cool guy. He's going to understand. And Scott was really worried. He thought he was going to kick his butt. And Scott's dad was not like that. He was a really nice guy, really cool guy. And then I saw Scott the next day at school. I said, well, what happened when you got home? He says, I couldn't believe it. All my dad said was, he says, well, it's no big deal. Look, that can be repaired easy. And he says, you guys had a good time. That's all that counts. You come back safe. And
Wow.
Scott couldn't believe it. Now, if it had been Milo's dad, and I'll tell you, on my 18th birthday, we didn't drink or anything before we went in the Army. So Milo came over, and two of the other guys, they picked him up. We were going to go see a movie. So we picked up about a bucket of KFC chicken. We thought we'd eat before we go into the movie and go have fun doing that. So we come out of Puyallup, and there's, for anybody who knows Puyallup, where 512 goes up that hill past the fairgrounds, then it levels out. There was a car that was going really slow in the right lane. So Milo had his dad's car, and he went to pass this car. Well, as soon as he passed the guy, of course, he had to speed up to pass the guy, and there was a state trooper behind us. And the state trooper pulls Milo over. Well, Milo wasn't giving the guy any grief. He got out of the car, and he picked Milo up, and he threw him on the hood of the car. And we're all sitting there like, what the hell is going on here? Well, he had a guy that was either in the academy or freshly out of the academy. He was showing off for this young guy. And he came back to, you guys got anything in the car? And I held the bucket of chicken up. I said, this is what we got. You're going to arrest us for this. And they let us go. So Milo got a ticket. I can't remember. I think it was like $158. Well, back at that time, that was a lot of money. It would be like a $600 ticket today,
Yeah.
So, Milo knew he was going to be in trouble going home. So again, the next day at school, because that's when we all saw each other, Milo come in rubbing his butt. I said, dude, what happened? He says, oh man, my dad, it was messed up. He gave me the choice of which steel-toed boot I wanted to be kicked with. And he had to pick, and then he kicked him in the butt with the steel-toed boot. And then he put the boot in the middle of Milo's bedroom floor and made him leave it there as a reminder for like a week or so.
Wow.
Milo's dad was messed up. Let's put it that way.
Well,
Did
I never lived in fear of God. I always lived fear and mother.
Yeah.
Well, that was my parents. I mean, but my dad would say things like, he'd hold his fist up and he'd say, you see that? I'd say, yeah. He says, I could take you out and make another one that looks just like you. And I'd look at him square in the face without blinking and say, do you really want to go through all that again? Your choice.
Did y'all ever find anything up there, cuz, when y'all went to Mount St. Helens?
We did the first night. We got there too late to hike up the trailhead, so we camped right across from the ranger station that was on Spirit Lake. Mm-hmm. There was a big parking lot over there, so we went to the far side of it. And then it was so windy up there. I mean, it was really bright because the moon, it was clear, the moon was out, and you could see, for hundreds of yards in any direction. So since we couldn't build a fire because of the wind, we couldn't put a tent up or anything, we decided to go walk around and just, find something to do, look around. And that's where we decided that we found out that pumice is slippery. And we sat on our butts and was sliding down this hill till our butts got cold. And then we discovered that our pants were worn out completely on our backsides. And had to go back to the van to change clothes. And we couldn't get in the van because Scott lost the car keys.
Oh, God.
And his wallet that we'd pooled all our money in. So when we went back to look for the wallet and the keys, we found a set of, we thought at the time they were 19-inch tracks. They were 18-inch tracks, and it was the toe off, that added that little bit of extra going up this slope. Uh-huh. And there were hundreds and hundreds of these tracks. You could see them as far as you could see up that ridge. This line of tracks they went a long way. So, we took some pictures and, went back to the van to try to get as much sleep as we could. Of course, there wasn't a lot of sleeping because that's where Paul and, our friend Kirk decided they had to get out and relieve themselves. So what did we do like good friends? We locked them outside. And then this car, now you have to drive a long way up the Kalama River to get into that area, right? And back then, in those days, there was, after, a certain time of day, there was absolutely no traffic. The only thing up there was the ranger station, and it was closed that time of year. There was nobody up there. So we were the only ones up there. And after we got back to the van, changed our clothes and tried to get some sleep, and those two got out. We locked them out. This car appears at the other side of this parking lot and starts doing donuts. I mean, lots of them. Just burned these tires off and made this huge black cloud of tire smoke. And of course it didn't dissipate. The wind blew it directly at us. And it stayed as thick as it was. You couldn't even see through it. And those two were outside pounding in the van, let us in. And our friend Brian, he's like, you're gonna die. Yeah, that's exactly what he said. He's laughing and pointing at him, and they're pleading to get in. So the cloud hits the van, and you could not see an inch outside the glass. It was that thick. And you hear all this coughing and all this stuff going on outside. Well, it blew by pretty quick, so after a couple moments, it was clear. And there's Kirk. Now, Kirk had asthma, and he was fine. Paul was coughing a lung or two up. And we opened the door, we're like, how come you're coughing and you're not? You've got asthma. Kirk says, well, I just held my breath. We look at Paul like, this is the same Paul that dropped his pack going up the pass.
Yeah, had all the crap in it.
Had all the crap in it, yep.
Yep.
So the rest of the trip was kind of like that. Until we got back to the van and Scott shot the chunk of metal up in the air and it came back and landed in the windshield. Mm-hmm. But I don't think we did a whole lot. We went out a few more times that year, but it was just local. There was one time, we went out and I told you guys about his brother, John's brother, Jeff, had thrown a rock out in the trees. We had 2 campfires going because there were 10 of us, and to fit that many people around a fire, you got to have a couple of them. So we had 2 campfires going, and I was on one side of John, and his brother was on the other side. I didn't hear him. I didn't hear Jeff say, hey, you think I'm going to get in trouble for, throwing that rock out there? And John says, you better be quiet and not say anything. These guys will beat the crap out of you. Because we were on high alert. We were listening, especially after the whole Clark Ranch thing. We were pretty vigilant after that. And it wasn't long after that this big branch, probably 6 feet long, come flying out of the darkness and almost hit one of the guys. I don't know if it did hit him or not. Came pretty close. So apparently one of these things was out there and didn't like Jeff throwing the rock out there at him. We searched the area. We didn't see anything, but it was, wet and rainy that time of year. There wasn't much to find, but I don't even think we had the one flashlight with us that trip.
Y'all didn't hear it coming or going?
No, it was super quiet. Well, but I know we were crazy when we were teenagers. I don't know how we kept from being eaten some of those times. They must have thought, oh God, we can't eat those. There's something wrong with them. But
afraid they might catch something from you.
Right. Poor Milo, he was brand new to all that stuff. He had moved up from Long Beach, California, right before I met him. And I want to say we met when we were sophomores. Because one of my other really good friends that I had known for years had moved to Southern Oregon, and he was kind of he was a big part of our group. And then when he left, our friend Mark was the guy that was with me the day we found the footprints for the first time back in 1972, and then he left. And then I met Milo not that long after that, or maybe around the same time. But he had no experience with the outdoors at all. So all that stuff, like in fact, I think he might have mentioned the Clark Ranch thing was his first time going out in the woods.
One to remember, that's for sure.
Yeah, so he goes out there, and he's the only one of us that actually seen the creature, or one of the creatures. There were other ones we didn't see him.
That was the one where he saw it before the other guy was touched in the tent, right?
Right. It was after that, yeah, because we were on high alert after that happened. Once we knew what was there and saw the footprints and everything, and up until recently, he'd always tell Paul, call Paul the gropey. He was the bait. Whenever we go, if he was along, he was the guy that they were going after. It seemed like so. But yeah,
how much of it did Milo see? I can't remember.
From about mid chest up.
Okay.
Well, the tent was 6 feet high at the peak. Well, it wasn't a peak; it was actually squared at the top, and that was 6 feet. And he saw it from, like I said, mid chest up. So we estimated it was around. It had to be at least 8 feet tall, because it was 2.5 feet above the top of the tent. And there was 18-inch tracks there, so I'm assuming it was the same one. Even though we heard other ones, there had to be at least four of them in that group, because we'd hear the two vocalizing back and forth a ways away from us, and then there was at least one circling the camp periodically.
You think the one that was circling was the one that reached in the tent, or another one? Most likely.
I don't really know, because here's the thing. We could tell something was circling because the frogs would stop on one side of us, then they'd stop on the next side, in a circular motion around us. But there was a time, too, when they stop on one side and then they'd stop on the opposite side just moments later. And they would keep going on the other two directions. So we're thinking, okay, there has to be two of them here for that to happen. I mean, without seeing them, you kind of have to rely on other means of detection. I don't know why we never brought my dog. We should have brought him along.
Do you think the one that showed itself was like the leader of the group, or?
It could have been because of its size. Like I said, I think that's the one that left the 18-inch prints based on its height. And I can't remember without doing the calculation what that is, but on an 18-inch print, it's over 8 feet. I know that 8.5, something like that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one. And it was by John. John was a pretty good artist. So when we got back, we had Milo describe everything he could to John, and John drew it. I don't have the drawing anymore, unfortunately, but John made a pretty good drawing. And the shoulders were pretty close to being as wide as the tent. Now, the tent at the top, it was 6 feet high, and the top was 6 feet across. So there wasn't a lot of space on either side of where the arms came down. So it was pretty wide. And it was just glaring. You see these big eyes that were just glaring. And John did a really good job in his drawing, making that visualization.
Did y'all see it after Milo did, or?
We didn't know, because all it did was take a step backwards, and it was in complete darkness.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even turn all the way around. Milo had some question he wanted to ask me, and he turned completely around. He was facing the tent. I was facing the opposite direction on the other side of the fire, out towards, out beyond where we came into that location. And I just kind of leaned back where I could hear him. And I turned my head a little bit to answer his question. And when he turned it back around, we hear this, "Oh, blank." And he jumps 2 feet off the ground. And he was pretty much beside himself the rest of the night after that.
Don't blame him.
Well, like I said, that was his first trip ever even going out camping. He'd never been out in the woods because he was a Southern California kid. Had never been out anywhere in the woods. And that was his first exposure to the Pacific Northwest, was being out in that area and then coming face to face with the Sasquatch right behind the tent. And you figure that was no more than, he was probably, 2 feet, probably 2 feet away from the entrance of the tent, maybe a foot. He was up close to it. The top of the tent, like I said, it was 6 feet square, and then the base was wider, obviously, probably, 8 feet. 8 feet wide, 8 feet across. And then the creature was behind that, so it was less than 10 feet away from him. Probably 8 feet away from him. Well, no, because of the spacing. I'm guessing about 10.
Yeah, that's close enough.
That's way close enough. That's closer than I was.
Yeah.
You know, the ones I was near, I estimated 15, 20 feet approximately. Yeah, those good old days. I mean, I was trying to remember some of the other things we did, but those were kind of the prominent ones. You know, we went out on trips and we never seen or heard anything, obviously. You know, you get more of those than anything else.
Did any of them go with you or help out with the Puyallup Screamer?
No, none of the other guys were there. When Green and Dehinden came down, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
There was, no, John was doing a summer job. And he was away, so because he was the first guy I called, and his mom told me that he was off working. So, in fact, he called me when he got back, and that was just 2-3 days after Green and Dehinden left to go back to Canada. There was another friend. There was my mom had a friend that she had known in school that lived not far from us, and her son was older. I think when I was 18, he was around 25. And, okay guy. I mean, we hung out a few times, went fishing and stuff, but the age difference, obviously makes your interest a little different. But, he had a car. I didn't have a car yet, so I was 17 and he was the only other one I could think of that had a car. Milo was off working too, a summer job. But, so I called him. I said, hey, this happened. Do you want to go? So he says, yeah, sure. I'll be right there and pick you up. We'll go up there.
Was that the one where that scientist came out and screwed everything up, or was that the other day?
Oh, no, that was later. That was, because you figure Green and Dehinden, I met them in 1975. And when that guy came out, it was either late 89 or early 90. I don't remember exactly when that was. It was it must have been 90 because, that's when the creatures left that area in Yakult.
Okay.
So that would have been around the spring of 1990.
Yeah, because he came out and he did all kinds of crazy stuff.
Well, I've mentioned it numerous times before. He came out there, he called there, and the family there didn't want to deal with people coming out there looking for the creatures. They'd had their fill of that. So they told me, they said, we like what you're doing. You know what you're doing out here. Anybody who wants to come out here has to go through you to do that. Because they didn't want people just coming out on their property. And I don't blame them.
Right.
You don't want just strangers wandering around your property, especially, and they were brand new to country living and stuff. They'd come from Wisconsin and the city there, and they just didn't want to deal with all that. So they let me do it. He called them, and then I took the phone and talked to him, and, we got into a little pissing contest at one point because he was wanting to do all this stuff, and I said, well, my training might not be as extensive as yours in anthropology, but, I know enough where my instructor said, you want to observe without interference, otherwise whatever results you get are tainted. And he says, well, I've got a PhD. I know more than you. And I said, well, I've got 20 years of experience, which trumps your education in this.
Right.
Then he was quiet. Then he says, well, okay, we arranged a day and time for him to come out so I could be there to meet him. And figured, okay, that's a done deal. Well, he decided to come out a different day and time that I didn't know about, the family didn't know about. And he went ahead and did what he wanted to do out there. He put a whole bunch of stuff out in their feeding area, and it really ticked the creatures off.
Mm.
That's where they went to the neighboring farm and tore up their garden, and the family abandoned the farm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was mad. The family where we were in Yakult, they were mad as hell about that. Him coming out there. He even sexually hit on the lady of the house, and just the guy was rude as hell.
Yeah, they never had anything happen after that out there, did they?
No, creatures never came back.
Yeah.
It's all grown up now. I've been back there, driven past the place a few times over the years to look at it, and all the little trees. There's a picture of me, or not me, of this young guy, Ralph, that was with us, holding up a couple little saplings. And that's where they had gone through and pulled up all these trees that were 4 or 5 feet tall, pulled them up by their roots. And now all those trees are like 20 feet tall in that area. It's really thick. But yeah, I haven't gotten any reports. In fact, one of my guy who was the vice president of the old PCSIT moved to Yakult. He got on the city council there before he passed away, and he was keeping tabs on stuff. And he said that once in a great while they might get some sighting, but there really wasn't anything that happened again out there.
What about at Clark Ranch? Do they still have anything going on out there today, or?
No, that area's really changed. I don't know what kind of building they've done out there. They've done a lot of it, and there's, I think, a business there where their ranch used to be, and I've only been able to look at it through, Google Earth, but it's completely different. Now, I will say there is still activity out around Roy in that area, but it's in different places.
Like just passing through type thing?
I don't really know because I haven't worked that area and I don't have anybody there anymore. I haven't for years, but farther out towards Clear Lake and the Bald Hills, that was kind of the main area where stuff was going on. And I don't know about that anymore either because I'm not familiar with that area anymore. Haven't been out there for a long time.
Yeah, if they built it up, they probably moved on somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and there's, more stuff out towards Mount Rainier in that area, but like I said, you have to kind of look at where they've built, where the wildlife are, stuff like that. I mean, you still got Fort Lewis there, which is virtually unchanged out in those training areas. And they were coming into that area.
Do they still get reports in that area of Fort Lewis?
Well, they're supposed to be, but I haven't heard them. I mean, they say there is. I'd like to hear if anybody's, stationed out there. Well, Jared, he's stationed there. I've talked to him to see if he's heard anything. I want to say that he did, but I can't recall offhand. And Jared's getting out of the Army here, I think, in a few months. He was telling me he's going to move back to, because I believe they were from Wisconsin. And he was talking about going back there and maybe going into law enforcement. Forrest, what's going on in your area?
Not too much of anything. I hadn't seen anything happening lately, and I'd just like to keep it that way, frankly.
You don't want the little guys coming back?
No, not really. In fact, I got Jessica out there. She's clearing all that off. We're going to get everything cleared out over there. The cedar trees are going to be all those little sucker branches that you down at the bottom of them. Getting rid of all that stuff.
That'll keep them away, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, they just need to. The only thing is that yesterday I was sitting out there about 7 o'clock with Anita underneath the oak tree. And Lagatha, my Belgian Malinois, she kept walking around sniffing the air. And where I told you we had that 20-foot, like where PEC came through and cleared out all those cedars to cut them a path to put these poles in across my property for the next door neighbor. And they had banked up these cedar trees that, just to push them off to the side. And it must have been at one point in time, I think it was 20 feet high. It was, really, let's half that now. I mean, it's seriously, it is. And we were just like scratching our heads about, how in the world did the foliage all, just disintegrate and it's just like that, and I hadn't paid any attention or what. We just didn't know. But then we noticed that it was all like spread out behind it. And well, anyway, and the story was that Lagatha kept walking up to that back fence and she was just sniffing and she was looking into those cedar trees. And Anita and I just kept looking at each other, and I said, I wonder if they're sitting out there right now watching us. Because she did. She just kept sniffing, and she had her ears pricked up, and you know those big ears that Malinois have. They just, I mean, she was just like, they were like radar units on the top of her head, you know, rotating. And she smelled something out there. I don't know what it was, but I wasn't going to go look. It was beyond my yard fence, so, you know, I was perfectly satisfied just to sit under my oak tree.
Well, yeah, I can understand that.
You reckon the heat's been keeping them at bay?
Well, that's and it's possible, but I'll tell you, we haven't had that. Excuse me. We haven't had heat like we had last year. We've only had a couple of days that hit 100. I mean, and knock on wood. I hope it stays that way.
It's been hot here. It's been up around close to 100 each day. It's 98 right now.
You can just keep it. So,
I can send it back. That's okay.
No. It's 97 here right now, but I mean, I'm talking about, you remember last year, I mean, we had 112, 115.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one day it was even 120, and we were all going, okay, well, we'll just go cook outside. We just put a griddle out, and we can just cook on it, you know.
Right.
So, you know, no, I mean, it's been nothing like that. 100 degrees, I mean, like it's only been up to 100 a couple of days, but I mean, in the 90s, I can handle that, you know, and especially when you're out there under those oak trees. And of course, this is Texas. The wind blows all the time. So as long as I'm underneath the tree and it's shady and the wind's blowing, I mean, it can be hot out there and it'll still be comfortable for us. So, you know, it's just you Californians can't take it. You know, what can I say?
It's supposed to be 97 here today with the heat index at 110 and then cool off, but we'll see if that happens or not.
Well, you've got all that humidity out there.
Actually,
oh, God, yeah.
Actually, I'm a Washingtonian. I lived in Washington 50 years.
That's right. Oh, that's right. I just forget you were in California.
I don't claim California.
Okay. I don't think most Californians claim California anymore.
I know I should be nice, but
I have to tell you funny, not to get political here, but you know me. Biden was supposed to have a rally in Austin here. And of course, you know, Austin's the liberal mecca in Texas. God forbid. I mean, I went to high school there and grew up there, and it's nothing like it used to be. But anyway, he didn't show up. He canceled. I think after what happened to Trump, I think he was afraid to come to Texas.
Oh, well, you never know. I mean,
wouldn't surprise me.
It's weird times these days.
Yeah. That's okay. I'm still, you know who I'm voting for.
Yep.
My phone makes all the weirdest noises, whether I want it to or not. It's sitting here doing stuff all on its own.
That's a smartphone for you.
Well, it isn't too smart. Well, I guess it is if it's doing things on its own. It's a smart aleck phone. That's what we got to call them.
Well, don't you love it when it changes the spelling of your words? I mean, you send words
constantly.
Out,
constantly.
You typed it correctly, and then you look at the message after you sent it, and you go, "Wait a minute, I didn't type that. What the heck?"
You know, I want an Alexa that has the smart aleck version. So when you ask it stuff, it gives you some crappy answer. Milo's told me things to do with Alexa that I'm not going to repeat because of the results you get.
Oh God.
Well, I'll say one that Milo. And this is from Milo. Milo said this. He says, "Say fart to Alexa and see what happens." You'll get more than you bargained for. We'll put it that way.
You say what to Alexa?
Fart.
Fart.
Yep.
Huh. What's Alexa do?
Well, you have to find out.
Well, I don't have an Alexa, so I don't. I just remember what he asked me one time, and I was just like, "What are you
Milo asked you?
talking about?" Yes. I was like, and I was just like, "What? Why did you ask me such a thing?"
I think I told you guys. Tracy had to go in the hospital for some kind of procedure yesterday, so they kept him over another day for observation because they was afraid he might have an blood infection. So he just sent me this text. He said he's not feeling real good right now. I said, well, take it easy. And he says, was asleep till the nurse just came in and till the nurse came in and fondled me, and not in a good way. See, even when Tracy's not here, he still sends some zingers.
Oh boy.
Well, guys, I think we're about out of time. We'll wrap this chat up. Folks, thanks for joining us today, and stop in around the fire next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creek Devil. If you or anyone you know has had an encounter with these creatures, please contact us at williamjevning@yahoo.com. That's William, Jevning, @yahoo.com. All communication is confidential. Join us for another program next week. And until then, keep your eyes open out there.